1927. Watford, Hertfordshire. Under a dull, overcast sky, a machine slowly emerges from a factory yard on Talbot's Lane. It doesn't glide, it lumbers. Massive. Unapologetically heavy. 6 wheels carry a body that looks more like a barge than a vehicle. A long nose, a blunt cab, and a rear compartment big enough to house a small crew. The engine hums at low revs, a deep diesel rumble that feels more underground than mechanical. Engineers and War Office observers stand at a distance, notebooks in hand. Some are curious, others, unconvinced, because even then it looks outdated. Too bulky, too slow, too crude. With a top speed of just 24 miles per hour, less when loaded, it hardly fits the image of modern military engineering. It feels like a machine built for yesterday's war. And yet, over the next 50 years, this very design would haul Britain's heaviest artillery across North Africa's deserts, Italy's mountains, the beaches of Normandy, and the jungles of Burma. Even the enemy would capture it, and choose to keep using it. The British Army would officially retire it, then quietly continue relying on it anyway. Its name was the Scamel Pioneer. And it may have been the most underestimated vehicle Britain ever built. To understand why it existed, you have to go back to the 1920s. At the time, the British Empire stretched across a quarter of the globe, much of it without roads. In regions like India, Malaya, and the Middle East, moving heavy equipment across sand, mud, and jungle terrain wasn't just difficult, it was nearly impossible. Standard trucks simply couldn't cope. So in 1924, a requirement was issued. Britain needed a vehicle that could go where roads didn't exist. 2 years later, Scamel lorries of Watford answered the call. Leading the design was Oliver Danson North, a man who had little interest in elegance. What mattered to him was one thing: reliability. And to solve the problem of traction, he introduced something revolutionary: the walking beam rear bogie. Instead of rigid axles, the rear wheels were mounted on pivoting beams. Each side could move independently, allowing the wheels to climb, drop, and adapt to uneven ground while maintaining constant contact. Power was distributed through a system of differentials and drive shafts, fully gear-driven, rugged, and precise. The result? A vehicle that didn't just survive harsh terrain, it dominated it. It could crawl over obstacles that would stop other machines dead. It could move through deep mud, soft sand, and broken ground without losing grip. Where others failed, the Pioneer kept moving. The War Office initially showed little enthusiasm. Early versions ran on petrol engines that consumed too much fuel for long-range operations. But that changed in the early 1930s with the introduction of the Gardner 6LW diesel engine. On paper, it wasn't impressive, just over 100 horsepower. But numbers alone didn't tell the story. At low speeds, the engine produced immense torque, giving it the strength to pull massive loads without strain. It was efficient, durable, and built with remarkable precision. This wasn't an engine designed for speed. It was built to work, relentlessly. By 1935, the Pioneer entered service as a heavy artillery tractor. It carried a full crew, transported ammunition, and even featured a built-in hoist system for handling shells. But what truly set it apart was its winch, a powerful system capable of dragging artillery weighing over 10 tons out of mud, sand, or shell-torn ground. It wasn't just a transport vehicle. It was a recovery system, a logistics platform, and a battlefield problem solver, all in one. Then came war. In 1940, during the fall of France, many Pioneers were abandoned or destroyed during the evacuation at Dunkirk. But what happened next said everything about the machine's quality. German forces captured them, studied them, and instead of scrapping them, put them straight back into service. An army with its own advanced vehicles still chose to rely on a captured British design. That tells you everything. In North Africa, the Pioneer finally proved exactly what it had been built for. Endless desert. No roads. Extreme conditions. It thrived. Paired with a massive 7.2-inch howitzer, it became the backbone of British heavy artillery mobility, towing, positioning, supplying, and recovering guns across vast distances. From El Alamein to the Italian campaign, it did the same job under entirely different conditions. Mud, mountains, destroyed roads. Where terrain became impossible, the Pioneer simply adapted. By the time Allied forces landed in Normandy, newer vehicles existed. Faster ones. More powerful ones. But the Pioneer was still there. Still working. Still trusted. Because while others might outperform it on paper, few could match its reliability in the field. And in war, reliability is everything. After the war, it was officially phased out. But it never really disappeared. It found new life hauling equipment for traveling showmen, appearing at vintage rallies, and even continuing military service in remote regions well into the 1980s. One vehicle, nicknamed Swampy, served in jungle conditions decades after its design was first conceived. Think about that. A machine built in 1927, still working over half a century later. No advanced electronics. No modern systems. Just solid engineering, simplicity, and purpose. The Scamel Pioneer never looked impressive. It was slow, heavy, outdated even at birth. But it hauled guns across continents, climbed mountains, crossed deserts, survived jungles, served in every major theater of the Second World War. Even its enemies trusted it, and its creators never truly replaced it. That's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's engineering done right. Build it strong. Build it simple. Build it to last. Rocket.